After years of rigged ballots, street revolutions, and exile politics, is Bangladesh finally heading for a real democratic reset? On Thursday, Bangladeshis vote in their first election since student-led protests toppled the Awami League's iron grip on power and sent former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina fleeing the country. I'm Adijan Ayandar, and today's newsmaker is Bangladesh elections. The frontrunner is the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, led by Tarique Rahman, returning from nearly 2 decades in exile after corruption convictions were overturned by newly independent courts. Challenging him is Jamaat-e-Islami, a conservative party newly unbanned and gaining ground in the political vacuum left by the collapse of the old order. All this unfolds under a caretaker government led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, as voters also decide a referendum that could limit prime ministerial power and reshape the political system. Here's more on the story.
For the first time in a generation, Bangladesh stands on the cusp of its first proper elections. And millions of people believe for the first time in their lives that casting a vote will mean something, since the ousting of previous Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina 18 months ago. Sheikh Hasina's 15-year autocratic rule was marked by accusations of rigged elections, political suppression, embezzlement, forced disappearances, and murder. A student-led revolution saw Hasina flee the country to live in self-exile in India in August 2024, after a violent government crackdown on student protests led to the deaths of an estimated 1,400 people. A Bangladesh war crimes tribunal sentenced her and many of her political contemporaries to death in absentia. Muhammad Yunus has led the country as caretaker prime minister ever since, but now Bangladesh politics could change forever.
This election must be a nation-building election. This election must be an election to change the destiny of the people of Bangladesh, their brothers and sisters.
Tarique Rahman of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party is the current frontrunner in opinion polls and is part of the Bangladesh political dynasty. His father was Prime Minister until his assassination in 1981. His mother, Khalida Zia, led the country twice. But Tarique Rahman doesn't come without baggage. He was a central power broker in the BNP party machinery under previous BNP-led governments. A leaked US diplomatic cable in 2008 labelled him a symbol for kleptocratic government and accused him of flagrantly demanding bribes, allegations Tarique denies. Second is Shafiqur Rahman, leader of Jamaat-e-Islami, which is itself the head of an 11-party alliance. Jamaat-e-Islami was also banned from running in elections during the rule of Sheikh Hasina, but has seen a surge in popularity since.
Number one, party will remain free from corruption. It will not give any shelter or show any weakness to any people who is corrupt. Number two, will ensure social justice for all. No political interference will be allowed there.
But fears of a religiously conservative government give many voters in Bangladesh pause for thought. Many observers note comments Shafiqur Rahman has made in the past suggesting he thought women are unsuited to high office, and note a lack of female candidates in the party. Critics worry that in office, a Shafiqur Rahman government may even restrict women's freedoms and reduce women's working hours. Shafiqur has not spoken out strongly to refute those claims. Bangladeshis will also be voting on a referendum to approve a new constitution, which would see the establishment of a new 100-member upper house and a 10-year limit on the time any prime minister can serve in office. Bangladesh is on the verge of becoming a very different country.
To debate that and more, let's go straight to our panel from Dhaka, former information and broadcasting advisor of Bangladesh, Mahfuj Alam. Also in Dhaka, founder of Dhaka Forum and co-founder of CNI News, Ashfaq Zaman, and from Oxford, human rights lawyer and graduate researcher at the University of Oxford, Tarique Rahman. Gentlemen, welcome to all of you. It's great to have you on the show. Mahfuj Alam, you were described by Mohammed Yunus as the brain of the July revolution 18 months ago. Do you feel that this election has this feel about it, that it's fulfilled a very important moment?
Thank you for having me here. So yes, I think July uprising was uh, destined for a free, fair, and participatory election. So yes, this is kind of fulfillment of people's uh, will for which was long overdue for last decades. So a decade and more. So yes, this is something our generation has aspired for a long period, and our generation didn't vote for um, 10 years or more. So I think this is a great event for our generation. They can vote for the first time, and I think our uprising, which was having this aspiration and having this wide understanding that without election and voting rights, there couldn't be a democracy. And under Sheikh Hasina's regime, which was violated again and again. So it is also the return of the rights, return of the people's suffrage, and many things. And especially for our generation, it is something new. And our generation is now going back to villages and their homes, and they're waiting to vote. And I think this is a
Okay.
great event for Bangladesh for
Okay.
many years.
Ashfaq,
Yes.
let me turn to you. I know that you're listening to Mahfuj. He's essentially saying that this is a fulfillment of the people of Bangladesh, especially sort of the younger generation. From a strategic and a regional perspective, how significant is this election for a country that is essentially, I think it's fair to say, of witnessing years of democratic backsliding?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we miss the festivity that we used to feel during the time of election. I think for the last, for many people, even though they were eligible for being the voters, they were not actually being able to vote, or they did not simply want to vote because those votes actually did not hold any meaning. So I think after a long period of time, people are looking forward to vote, and it is in the minds and hearts of all the people. Everywhere you go, for the last few weeks, it has been all about election. Not only in the news, but in the tea stalls, in the offices, everywhere. People are actually looking forward to the election itself. Having said that, I think one very important aspect over here is that it's a changed nation now where people are no longer want to take the back seat. They actually want to, they have, after the July awakening or after the July revolution, they feel that they are the owners of this country. They are the owners of this republic. And this civic awakening is something that the people, including us, we do not want to miss out.
Okay. Ashfaq, thank you for that. Takbir, let me turn to you. Ashfaq said this is a changed nation. I mean, I'm hoping you can reply from a human rights standpoint and a rule of law standpoint. How genuinely different is this from 2024?
I mean, the biggest difference is that the Awami League is not contesting, and the only known, path to success doesn't belong to the Awami League. So that is both an advantage, but it's also a kind of risk factor as well, right? From a human rights law point of view, a blanket ban on one of the largest political parties is incredibly difficult to justify, and many critics have pointed to the fact that that such a blanket ban would preclude it from being considered a purely free and fair election. But at the same time, groups which were at the weight of, the full apparatus of the state's authoritarian crackdown, like the BNP, like the Jamaat, are now able to sort of mobilize in a way that was frankly very difficult and impossible under Sheikh Hasina's rule. So that definitely is, a completely stark divergence from 2024. But if you may also ask the student leaders who formed the National Citizens Party, we know that they have now formed an alliance with the Jamaat Party, but that also came at a cost. Many of the leaders who felt within the NCP who felt betrayed, particularly women leaders, by that alliance, would also probably not see this election as perhaps as promising as it once set out to be. So it really depends on who within these cluster of actors you ask whether or not it's a changed nation.
Okay. I like your analysis. All right, now, Ashfaq, let me come back to you for just a second. I mean, we're talking about Jamaat-e-Islami. What are some of the reasons behind its gaining ground? I mean, it's been banned for years. Do you feel that this rise is perhaps driven by ideology, or as Takbir was saying, sort of like maybe sort of filling in the vacuums that's been left behind as a result of the Awami League's exit?
I think historically, Jamaat always had a very small percentage when it came to the voter base, approximately 5 to 6%. But I think in the absence of Awami League and what has happened over the last few years, there has been a growing mistrust. There's a lot of public anger, people exhausted by the norms of the governments that they have seen, particularly Awami League. And I think what Jamaat-Islami has done quite well is basically sort of build onto those emotions. Their biggest probably mandate or biggest probably propagation has been, or branding has been, that you've already tried all the other political parties. Why don't you try us out? I think they have really tapped in well with these emotions of the people, where they're exhausted by promises not being kept, by corruption and other aspects. Having said that, it is probably on the election day that we will truly understand whether these narratives have been able to be deeply rooted, because there's also a popular opinion that as much as it seems that they have actually gained in a lot of traction, it might be a sort of like a cue from the social media only, and might not be into the realities of the society as well. So actually on the 12th, we will actually see what really has been the impact.
Okay, Mahfuj, your take on the rise of Jamaat? Is it just social media, or are the gains reflecting reality?
I think they have a strong organizational base in Bangladesh compared to other South Asian nations. And as they were persecuted for a decade or more, so they have gained people's sympathy towards them, and they have now just this election is about BNP and others, BNP versus others.
Okay.
So it ought to be NCP or students politics, the new politics. But as the students couldn't gain that much organizational foothold across Bangladesh, so now it is anti-incumbency. It is about, okay, BNP comes to power, the uh, who will be there for checking and balancing. So it is now anti-incumbency, that okay, Jamaat can be an option, and Jamaat has sort of grown, and like they are now transformed in a way that they are advocating for some rights, liberal rights and democratic rights. Though we don't know that what is their pathway in future, but okay, they are now promising many good things. So I think people are now supporting Jamaat for absence of students alternative, and their history of persecution and other things in sympathy, and it is about anti-incumbency.
Mahfuj,
Yes.
let me ask you about the students. I mean, this is a group that was drove the uprisings, but the fact is that they are splintered politically. Why do you think it was difficult for them to sort of translate that into unity?
I think the composition of leadership in the time of uprising was from many segments, like students from BNP's students wing, students from Jamaat-e-Islami's students wing, and other leftist parties' student wings were also there. So they became like uh, they became independent of the forum that SAD, Students Against Discrimination. After a while, like in 1 month, like everyone was going to their parent party. So that is one when students got like, okay, they were disintegrated. And then came many ideological and political question of approaches, and many things to consider. So the uprising was spontaneous, and people are giving support to students' cause and the cause of democracy. But after interim government formed, after interim government's formation, I think it was about who will come to power in next election. So everyone thought about their own future and their own trajectory.
Okay. Ashfaq, let me come back to you. When you look at the polls, it's Tarique Rahman who's leading, but his name is still linked to, associated with corruption. Does this matter at all with the voters?
I think public perception of Tariq Rahman today is shaped far more by the present than what was in the past. I mean, you are probably referring to the US leaks of the 2008 and 9.
Yeah.
There are rarely a live topic amongst the public today. On the ground, there's an overwhelming excitement, curiosity, or even admiration, I might say. General people wave, cheer whenever he passes by. Even like our rickshaw pullers and shopkeepers are just awed. There's a clear leadership celebrity effect, as we can see. Even like Time magazine described him as the prodigal son returning. Many Bangladeshis, I believe they see him as a reformed leader, shaped by nearly 70 years in exile, particularly living in the UK. I think it has also altered his political tone. He now speaks with a lot of planning and deliberation. In fact, his first message when he returned was not a rhetoric, but he was showing intent when he mentioned that he has a plan for the country. I think equally powerful are his small human gestures, like sitting on an ordinary chair, personally greeting people from all walks of life, despite obvious security risk. And simple acts of humanity have resonated so deeply, signaling perhaps a change in the political culture of Bangladesh itself. By that measure, many voters believe Tariq Rahman has undergone a visible transformation.
Okay.
And most of the survey polls, as you mentioned, shows that people are expecting him as the next prime minister when questioned on whom do you see to be the next prime minister.
Okay. Takbir, I mean, I understand the appeal that of some of the things that Ashfaq was talking about, the headlines of the prodigal son returning, the acts of humanity that are being sort of portrayed on media. But from a legal perspective, talk to me about the significance of Rahman's convictions that are being overturned by independent courts. I mean, does that sort of signal a reform in the country's judicial system?
Right. I mean, it's really difficult to assess how independent the courts were that are overturning these convictions because, I mean, there's probably more independent than they were than the ones that convicted the Rahman because, Sheikh Hasina had completely co-opted the judiciary. But at the same time, these allegations were not completely baseless. So this rushed manner in which these acquittals took place under an interim government also, of course, raises certain eyebrows. But the more important challenge for Bangladesh is, to what extent can the judiciary insulate itself from executive interference? And executive interference into the judiciary has been a bipartisan legacy, right? It's not exclusive to the Awami League. Even when the BNP ruled, there were allegations and indeed evidence of interference with judicial rulings. So I think beyond the Tarique Rahman case, the question remains, whichever government comes into power, to what extent can the judiciary be an independent vanguard against human rights, for the rule of law? And here, there have been certain attempts to to institutionalize this independence to certain reforms that have taken place. But whether these will stand the test of time, remains to be seen.
Okay. Mahfuj, let me turn to you. As someone sort of who has helped dismantle an autocratic system, what do you feel about the possible return to dynastic politics?
Okay. I think in Bangladesh, not in Bangladesh only, but in South Asia, it's about family. It is about tradition. In India, it is Gandhi family or other families in different states, and in Pakistan, it is about Bhutto and other families. So I think in Bangladesh, it was Sheikh Hasina's family and Sheikh Jiaur Rahman's family. So yeah, in Bangladesh, I think it will persist on, and because for BNP, I think they have something like they have two persons who had no such thing against their own people, like Shahid President Jiaur Rahman and Begum Khaleda Jia. So I think they have something like nothing to point towards them, and for that reason, BNP will have an age like Tarique Rahman will have an age. Like people will not won't think him as like Sheikh Hasina heir to Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was also like he was not liked by many people of Bangladesh, and he was killed, and many people were jubilant about his murder. But okay, that is sorry thing. But again, because of his misrule and things. But about Sheikh Jiaur Rahman, it was different. About Madam Khaleda Zia, it was different. So BNP has different thing. BNP has different age and different, I think, privilege. Like, and it is also again burden on Tarique Rahman that he has to carry out many things to compete with his predecessor of his parents, apparently.
Okay.
So I think this is interesting time for only one family existing in Bangladesh, dynasty existing in Bangladesh, and how he will deliver the promises and how he lead compared to his mother and father.
Okay. I don't have a lot of
So
time left. Very quick answers from both Ashfaq and Takbir. Ashfaq, let me start with you. Do you feel that this is perhaps the beginning of a long-term stabilization process for politics in Bangladesh?
Well, it has to be that we don't have an alternative. After 17 years of what we have suffered, and within this 1.5 years of the interim government, it was not fulfillment of the expectation of the people. So I feel that perhaps we don't have an option. The citizens, together with whatever political parties we have now, we have to work this out. So I'm being optimistic and hoping that the 12th will be the beginning of a new journey.
Okay. Takbir, I'm going to give you the last word.
I think it really depends on, what happens to the Awami League voters. If you institute collective punishment on such a large segment of society, where do they go? Do they, wreak violence as retribution, or do they find other tacit collusions through which they, make peace? And both of these are being reported. But importantly, it also turns on questions that are not discussed, like the Chittagong Hill Tracts, which remains the most militarized region in Bangladesh, and of course the Rohingya refugees who continue to be in the southeast corner of the country. So whichever government handles these really contentious issues better than Sheikh Hasina did will take us towards stability. But if they continue repeating the patterns of the past, then unfortunately it'll be more of the same.
Okay, Mahfuj, I'm going to give you the last word. I don't have a lot of time left. A new page?
Okay. But I think this is a new chapter for Bangladesh, and I think the promises of reforms and justice should be delivered, and without that, there will be more unrest and more protests to come. So I think whoever comes to power will give heed to the students and younger generations' concerns and the concerns of wide people, of concerns of peoples that there should be reform, there should be justice, and there should be obviously, as Takbir Huda said, about reconciliation and truth seeking, and how to minimize the retribution and revenge. Yes, many things.
Okay, all
But
right.
it is a good chapter to begin with.
Okay.
Yes.
Mahfuj Alam, Ashfaq Zaman, and Takbir Huda, thank you very much for joining us here on this episode of The Newsmakers. And thanks to you for watching. Of course, you can follow us on social media and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. For now, I'm Adi Janayanash, and we'll see you next time.